Hey everyone. You know what? To be honest, I really don't know how to start these without being super awkward. Some teachers have really awesome introductions. I don't. We'll work on that. So I guess today, instead of me being awkward more, we'll talk about manifest destiny. All right, we've talked about this idea already, but it's the idea that the nation was meant to spread west to the Pacific. We were going to own this great land no matter who gets in our way. And guess what? More people are getting in our way. So let's take them over, shall we? All right. So where does manifest destiny come from? There's this newspaper editor. His name was John O'Sullivan. Okay, and what this really called for was the annexation of Texas. Now, at this time, in the mid to early 1800s, Texas was owned by Mexico. All right, and newspaper editor John O'Sullivan called the annexation of Texas the fulfillment of our manifest destiny to overspread the continent allotted by Providence, God, for the free development of our yearly multiplying millions. So because America is growing exponentially, God, in his almighty wisdom, has decided for us that we need to take over this land. Right? This is very similar to like the Chinese dynasties, right? Rule by right. But this was all glorious, okay? The frontier was exciting. It was adventurous, right? It was the Wild West. It was, you think about Clint Eastwood and you think about all the cowboy movies. This was the Wild West, okay? What this also meant was a fresh start for immigrants and poor. Now, out in the East, remember those cities, overcrowded, a bunch of people coming in, and there was no work, okay? So this was a time for them to make their claim on a land. So what we want to think about is how has this manifest destiny idea appeared elsewhere in history? Okay, what I want you to do is I want you to take a few moments, pause this right now, and kind of answer that question before you move on. All right, I'm going to be doing this a little bit this movie, so make sure you answer those because I'm going to collect them at when we come back Tuesday. All right. So we've seen some of these pictures before, right? We've seen American progress, but now what I want you guys to look at is the date. Okay, John Gass painted this in 1872, right? And we've talked about this one, right? We've talked about this one, the course of the empire, 1860. 1867, westward the star of empire takes its way, all right? And then also the Oregon Trail, okay? We've talked about the white horse for Oregon here, okay? The lighting, the colors and everything, right? It's all very glorious, it's all very glamorous, it's all very romantic, right? This idea to go out and do something on your own. So, a little music. The expansion into Texas. So once upon a time in Mexico, originally owned by Spain, became independent from Spain in 1821. So the empresarios, the land agents, invited U.S. settlers into the northern Mexican territory, as we know it as Texas. Now whites, the Anglos, soon outnumbered the Mexicans, the Tejanos. So we start to see this problem here that, well, we outnumber you, maybe this should just be ours, right? What's going to happen? So more expansion, okay? There becomes this Texas Revolution. So Mexico steals its borders from us in 1830, but whites and Anglos, they kept coming in because there was this great deal of land. Guys, if you've ever been to Texas, it's huge, right? So Stephen Austin, this man right here with spots over here, petitioned for more self-government among the Anglos, okay? Now when you go into this territory, we recognize it as Mexican, right? We recognize that government, but we outnumber them, so why should we have to listen to them? Strange idea, right? So the Mexican president, Santa Anna, feared the growing Anglo power and arrested Austin, okay? To be honest, they kind of look alike. Austin was released, and he was kind of mad, so he led a battle for independence. Justified? Maybe? Probably not. So, more expansion into Texas. We all know the story of the Alamo, but why do we call Texas the Lone Star Republic, right? So the Battle of the Alamo, William Travis, Jim Bowie, where the Bowie knife comes from, and Davy Crockett, him and his coonskin hat here, they were holed up in the Alamo, okay, building down here. It was originally a Spanish mission, but it was also a fort, right, very well fortified. So Travis and his men fought bravely, but they were lost. They were slaughtered. They were massacred. There wasn't a single white person left. So Sam Houston and his troops won the war for independence, later shouting, "Remember the Alamo. Remember what the Mexicans and the Spanish did to us." All right, so 1836, Texas officially becomes the Lone Star Republic, not a state. It is not a state. It is an independent country. It's neither Mexican or American. All right, that's why Texas, the flag right here, has the Lone Star. It originally was its own self. So, should Texas become a state? What do you think? Well, 2 times in the next 9 years, Texas applies to the U.S. Congress for annexation. We want to become a state. And both times Congress say no. Why do they do it? Okay, so the Whigs from the Northeast oppose annexation. Why? Because they're Whigs. They did not want to anger Mexican officials who still felt Texas was part of their country, right? Mexico is still very bitter. This is very similar to the War of 1812. The British were still very upset with us during the War of 1812. They still thought we were their colony, okay? And then others did not want a large slave territory to come into the United States. Texas was huge, and it was below the 3630 line, meaning that it could become a slave state. No one wanted that. So, one of the most forgotten presidents in U.S. history, but he did so much for our country that it's unbelievable that we don't talk about him. So in 1844, James K. Polk, Democrat, elected president. Now he was a huge supporter of Manifest Destiny, but not the Manifest Destiny as we know it. We know Manifest Destiny is kind of conquer the whole nation. He knows Manifest Destiny as the Southwest and the Oregon Territory. So again, he wants to expand into California and Oregon. So in 1845, Congress voted to annex Texas. In 1845, Polk sent General Zachary Taylor into the southwestern part of Texas where Mexico was arguing over the border. Okay? So Polk also sent John Slidell to Mexico City to negotiate the purchase of California. A lot of things going on here in just this part of Texas, right? Once upon a time in Mexico. Another war. So the Mexican government, very upset that there were American troops on that side of the Rio Grande. So they asked Slidell to leave Mexico City. Now, us being American, you think it happened? No. So Polk felt that America's honor was being challenged, right? They challenged us to a duel. How dare you, Mexico? May 9th, 1846, Polk received a report that Mexican soldiers had fired upon American soldiers on the Texas side of the Rio Grande. Now remember, Texas is just almost a state, all right? Almost a state. And Congress immediately declared war on Mexico. Stop, pause it, ask yourself this question. Was America justified in declaring war on Mexico? Go ahead, I'll wait. So, 1846 to 1848, the war. Okay, so fighting begins in southern Texas, still on the American side, and the Americans won easily. Then it spread to California, very Spanish and Mexican heavy over there in California. So John C. Fremont, American, began an uprising, wanted to take over California, kind of spurred on by Polk. Easily overwhelmed the Mexican officials, easily. We had the arms, we had the numbers, and California becomes independent, not a state, kind of a territory, almost just like Texas, becomes the Bear Flag Republic. If you know anything about California, their flag is a bear. There you go. So fighting in Mexico City starts, all right? Now this is far from American territory, far from it. Now, well, I'll ask you this in a second. So even with the capture of Texas and California, Mexico refused to surrender, all right? Straight up refused, like no. Like, we understand that we lost this war, but these are our territories. You're not taking it from us. There's tons of resources up there. So General Winfield Scott, American, was sent to Mexico City, and after 6 months of fighting under American control, Mexico finally surrendered. Now, here's the thing. We could have greatly expanded our border well into kind of mid-Mexico territory, but we don't. Awesome. So the war with Mexico ends, and we signed the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo in 1848. So you can see here on the map, the Rio Grande River, the Rio Grande, okay, that becomes the southern border of Texas. New Mexico and California become part of the United States territories right now, right? United States purchases Nevada, Utah, Arizona, Colorado, and Wyoming. Okay, parts of it, right? Parts of it. Parts were from the Louisiana Purchase. Sorry, parts are from the Louisiana Purchase, but we get all this land. This is all from Polk. James A. Polk did this in 2 years. That's insane.